Our conversation today is with Ryan Valencic of Eupure. That's Eupure, and you want to make sure to get that spelling correct because we know you're going to be so eager to check out this totally all-in-one health coaching platform, which offers specialty testing, symptom self-assessments for clients, a provider network, professional-grade supplements, health improvement plans for your clients, mentorship for you, an e-commerce platform to help you sell your products and services, and sales and marketing support, all specifically built for health coaches, backed by a team of medical and legal directors to keep you safe and to protect the health coaching industry at large. Clients get results when they compare their symptoms, the subjective experience of health, with the outcome of testing, the objective experience of health, and then receive meaningful and actionable health action plans to help them feel better. Eupure was designed with this client-centered, coach-supported approach in mind, and you're definitely going to want to check it out. For now, please enjoy our conversation with Ryan Valencic. Hi, I'm Erin Power.
And I'm Laura Rupsis.
We're certified health coaches, and this is Health Coach Radio.
This podcast is about the art, science, and business of health coaching.
We share our insider tips to help you become a better coach and entrepreneur.
And we interview expert guests to discover how they've made it in this growing field.
It's time for health coaches to make an impact.
It's time for Health Coach Radio. All right, we got Ryan Valencic in the house. How are you, Ryan?
I'm doing well, Laura. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to have this conversation so that health coaches listening that are struggling in any way with getting started, whether it's logistics, mindset, what have you, I think they've got a lot to learn from you. So we're excited for this conversation. I don't want to kind of get ahead of the party here. I'd love for you to share your own origin story, introduce yourself, and explain kind of how you entered into this health and wellness profession and sort of how you landed here.
Yeah, long story short, I spent 12 years in private practice as a functional medicine provider. Had a personal situation with my oldest daughter, who's just about 11. Had a diagnosis before she was 1, and really kind of wove into my journey as a provider, kind of my mission all the way through. I'm also a serial entrepreneur, so I love the business side of it. I like the challenges that come with that. I think it's business is about problem solving and really finding yourself, finding your passion, how you want to run your business. And I think that's something that's always resonated with me through the process. I always told doctors that I train and coaches that I train, doesn't matter how good you are at what you do if you don't get the opportunity to get in front of people that you want to help. And so business is the necessary piece that if you want to have impact, you have to have the people that you're having impact with. And so one thing led to another, from private practice to franchising to licensing agreements. Had the pleasure to work with hundreds of coaches and physicians over the last decade plus, and a lot of passion in helping people, let's say, lessen the learning curve. Business can be humbling, but it doesn't have to be. It can be enjoyable if you do it the right way and you're really honest with yourself on what you want out of your business. Because I've always told people, you can't have somebody else define what your business should look like. Having help, having mentors, having those things are great, but ultimately you have to have a really clear picture of what happiness and professional success is, what that balance is. And so that's really where we've come full circle for myself professionally, is more of a mentor role, more of a help people do what they do and love what they do more.
Okay, amazing. Lots of good nuggets in there. So you're in more of a mentor role now. Talk more about that. What are you doing now?
Yeah, so a couple years back, one of our board members is with the Institute for Functional Medicine, and he brought up health coaching. And I knew what the term broadly meant, but I'd never had any direct experience in working with health coaches. And so we said, hey, let's bring some coaches on because there's a lot of things that functional medicine providers, doctors in general, do that they probably aren't the greatest. I guess I can insult doctors a little bit. Sometimes the bedside manner, or sometimes the details, we don't, the communication styles, sometimes we're on a different wavelength and we're going into clinical mechanisms with a patient or a client, and they are completely lost. And really what I've seen, health coaches are great at at being that liaison, that advocate for the client, where they can really walk through them with that journey, share experiences, coach positive psychology, all those types of things. But I think health coaches can be more than that too. And so I really have always loved seeing, since we started working with them about 3 years ago, they shouldn't be diagnosing, they shouldn't be treating, but it doesn't mean that they shouldn't speak the language really, really well. Like, you should know what certain lab markers are and what they mean. You should be able to answer certain questions and educate and support your clients. And so we really like to let health coaches be that bridge between the providers and the programs that are built for them and the client that really needs someone to walk that journey with them.
Nice. Yeah, we agree. I was going to share just a little anecdote. So in our advanced health coaching course that we teach that satisfies the educational requirements for the National Board of Health and Wellness Coaches, the NBHWC has a educational standard that you have to meet, and it involves teaching some health concepts. And it's very much the sort of what we would call the conventional wisdom around cholesterol, healthy diet, things like that. So we're obligated per the NBHWC to teach this. And in our school, we're not really aligned with that messaging in some cases, and our students sometimes don't love it. But what I told them is, you have to know it, because this is what your clients know. They're coming in knowing that their doctor told them their cholesterol was high, and they know that that's scary, but they don't know why. And the last thing we want to do is come in dogmatically shouting about cholesterol myths. We need to be able to speak the doctor language and the client language. We're really a translator in between those two.
Yeah, agreed. And I've seen it with the pharmaceutical side of things too. You need to be able to speak to it. And so my career, I worked with a ton of diabetics, pre-diabetics, type 1, type 2, you name it, early on. And I understand all the pharmaceuticals and the mechanisms and how they work and why they're recommended. Because if you can't speak to that, if you just kind of take the blanket, all pharmaceuticals are bad, you now, it's like a paradigm shift where you're on the opposite end of that spectrum, and you also sound unbelievable and uneducated in those situations. So I think just because you don't fully support something doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to speak to it intelligently, because it also adds a lot of validation to our industry if we can speak to it and why we feel the way we feel, versus just that immediate visceral response of all pharmaceuticals are bad. Listen, antibiotics are great in the right situation. Type 1 diabetes had 100% mortality rate until insulin was developed. So there is a time and a place. Understand that time and a place. So when you can have that client coming, you can speak to them intellectually versus emotionally.
Yeah. And think about how confusing it would be for the client if the doctor prescribed the medicine and then the health coach came in and said, oh, that's just big pharma. Now you've just given the client an opposing narrative that they have to try to manage. We're not helping anybody, honestly, when we do that.
I agree.
No, I agree. If you can help present both sides, right, and be able to explain, this is what having a conversation about the diagnosis, having a conversation about the treatment protocol, and having a conversation about how they feel about that. And what questions do they have, and what you can answer confidently do. If not, this is how you demonstrate, let's go find the resources. Let's go find out more about how this might actually relate to you. And so now you're working with the client to understand both sides so that they can make a confident, well-informed decision for themselves, rather than, well, my study can beat up your study, or my degree can beat your certificate, or this, because this is the paradigm we're in now. I feel like health coaching should be that bridge between the actual health consumer and healthcare. And instead, we've created this almost adversarial relationship, because so many people that come, not everyone, but so many people that come to health coaching because they are frustrated with the healthcare system. They've been misdiagnosed, undiagnosed, overprescribed, or here's the new trend, they've worked in it and they understand what it's like from the inside out. And they really understand the weaknesses and the challenges, and they want to either get out entirely because they're just pissed off, no one's listening, or they have this, I want to help fix it. I know I can't fix it all, but I can help my small little community. So we're starting to see this happen. And this is what I think NBHWC has done a phenomenal job of so far, is they're helping to create this bridge. We are seeing more and more job opportunities for health coaches pop up in the clinical space that gives health coaches the ability to practice under the guidance of some sort of clinical situation. Are all roles ideal? I don't know. I guess that's up to you. Are you going to find yourself needing to coach through a paradigm you don't believe in? Maybe. We don't know, but it's a start. We all have to start somewhere. And I'd love to hear from your point of view, Ryan, a little bit more about your own journey in this 12 years in private practice. Did you find yourself wanting to practice in a certain way, but finding the economics didn't work that way? Tell me a little bit about your experience as a clinical practitioner in your realm, and at what point you said you spoke to a colleague or someone on the functional medicine side around health coaches, and you were like, oh, that's interesting. Do you mind fleshing that out for us a little bit more?
Yeah, I think when you look at coaching and the processes around it, I guess the aha moment for me was actually seeing coaches in action, and seeing them. I feel like you can hear, someone can tell you what a health coach is and what they do, and I'm one of those. I'm a visual. I'm an experienced learning, and I think our industry as a whole has a few major flaws. And I'll speak alternative medicine. And when you look at it, we get very stuck in empathy and altruism. And it's extremely common when you are stuck there and you put no intention or thought process, forecasting, you name it, into the business side of things. There's a reason why most health coaches that go out on their own do not make it economically. There's a reason why most businesses in general. I think the idea of the money conversation needs to be, are you bringing value to your clients? And if you are, you should be compensated. I mean, you would never expect to pull into a restaurant and have great service and not pay for that. You would never expect to pull into the gas station and there's just gas in your car at no price. Like, there's an exchange of services and value. And what I see often, see it with new doctors, with new business owners, new coaches, they're really, really uncomfortable in the money piece, and they don't have that confidence. And confidence is the most important thing. And don't confuse confidence with arrogance, but confidence means that you have the expectation that you can help someone get from where they are to a better place. And a lot of coaches get stuck on, well, this person has something I can't handle. It's like, okay, it's all about setting the expectations. I've told coaches this all the time. You don't have to be able to help them with everything that's wrong with them. Can you help them get 50% better, 20% better, 80% better? It's the expectations you set with that client going into it that I think are so important. Don't get so caught up in perfection and empathy and altruism that you don't realize, in order to help people, to serve people, you have to have a business that is economically sound. And so that's a piece that most coaches aren't comfortable around. They don't want to talk about it. It's like this albatross. And for me, it's like, you should be really comfortable speaking to that. Because when you're comfortable speaking around the money, it tells me you're such a good coach that you know you have certainty that you can help people. And typically, as that confidence comes, sales becomes easy, marketing becomes easy, building your business becomes easy. And the ones that can't stop tripping over their own feet are the ones that lack that confidence. And I always tell them, if you were a prospective client meeting with you, would you choose to work with you based on how you come off, based on your education, based on how you can speak to conditions, based on how are you believable? Saying you can help someone is different than you knowing inside that you can help someone. And so there are different baby steps that can be taken to build confidence. But I think most coaches in running their own businesses, they get stuck in a silo. They don't know who to talk to. They don't know what to do. They struggle, and then eventually they leave the industry, or they do it as a hobby. And so I think it's really important to remember, it's okay to have a business. Like, it's okay to make money helping people. I mean, there's a lot of people that make money doing things that are the opposite of helping people. So you definitely need to be comfortable around that. And so I think some coaches, they grasp that relatively quickly. Others get very stuck in the, I'm charging too much. I don't know how to price this. I don't know how to talk around this, or I'm uncomfortable around the money piece. So I think that's always an important facet to look at.
Yeah, it's very multifaceted, actually. everything you just shared, which is the money, the confidence, the knowledge, your beliefs, it's not like we're going to go through on some continuum and solve for confidence and solve for money. And then, it's sort of melded together into this big personal mass. One thing that I've seen is, once again, when we're training coaches through this advanced coaching course that I teach, we double down on learning how to coach. That's all this course does. It's just, we're only going to talk about how to coach in any scenario, any person. They get sort of squished together with these practice clients, and it doesn't matter if you're an expert in what they need help with, you're going to have to coach them anyway, right? They practice this, they're kind of held feet to the fire. And when they graduate, they feel so confident in their ability to help anyone, that now they have the clarity on what they want to do, who they want to work with, what their business will look like. If they're going into private practice, or maybe they're going to go work at a medical clinic in an integrative setting. But I've seen the confidence breed the clarity time and again. And then I think what you said was also clarity breeds confidence. Like, it's not just a one-way street. Confidence, clarity, clarity, confidence. Then we get down to the question of, getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
That comes from clarity and confidence, right? So there's a lot of levers that a coach can pull to get more comfortable with everything they have to get comfortable with. I think that learning how to be a masterful coach is a great way to start. And then a lot of it unpacks from there. How do you facilitate coaches through starting to feel confident? And you kind of framed it from the context of asking for money, which I think is wonderful, or, receiving money, getting paid. But where do you like to start with coaches? What do you think is a good few skills for them to shore up, to start feeling their confidence and their clarity come online?
You can't build a plan until you know what you want. And so we have coaches in our network that they're moms, and being a mom is their number one priority. They want to do this part-time and make some impact. There are others that want that 6-figure business. They want to put their 30 to 40 to 50 hours into it. They're really confident. They're comfortable. I think it really comes down to the tools you have and the community you have. And I think those are some areas we've really focused on supporting people, the coaches in. If you are sitting down with someone that has multiple autoimmune diseases, hypothyroidism, celiac, Crohn's, type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, you name it, and all you have is the ability to ask them questions, we felt it's very difficult to know what's the starting point? What should you actually be doing? Can you do a modified elimination diet with most people with chronic illness and make impact? Sure. But it's probably relatively limited without it. So I've always been a big blender of, you want the subjective data, because typically people come in for subjective reasons. They don't feel well, fatigue, but you name it, the energy, all those types of things that come with it subjectively. Most people don't come in and say, gee, my A1C was 6.2. I need to get it to 5.6. What can we do about that? But having that data makes it really easy to blend it with the subjective type of symptoms and have an actual plan. So I've always been a big lab person, to grab that data as a starting point. And people, the research shows people will act more, like genetic testing, blood work, that they will be more consistent and compliant when there's actually data specifically linked to them that's actionable. And so I think those tools are really important. And you look at like all the components. So we surveyed about 600 coaches last year to get some data directly from them. What are the things you run into? And it's no mentorship. Over 50% of coaches said they lacked mentorship and support. 64% said they lacked the ability to learn how to sell. 80% lacked the ability to market, didn't know where to start, didn't know what to do. So there's so many things that come into play. Access to labs, providers. A lot of coaches, over 50% of coaches, when they're going into being coaches, they want to own their own business. There's lots of data that supports that. Very few of them have any idea where to start. They don't know how to start their limited liability company. They don't know how to do merchant processing. They aren't sure which EHR platform they should use. The list goes on and on. How do you sell? How do you market? I can have access to labs in some states, but I can't interpret them. I don't want to work directly under a provider, but man, having a provider oversight would be really beneficial. Where do I start? How do I even have a conversation with a doctor? And so I think there's dozens of problems that pop up. And was really no place where all the solutions were in one place. And that was what we saw was, okay, there's a huge gap here. How can we help meet coaches where they are and put the tools and also protect them legally? I think that's a huge piece. Regulations are tightening a ton. And a lot of coaches don't have the ability to go out and spend tens of thousands of dollars on a lawyer to make sure that they're following the laws. And so whether you intentionally or unintentionally are breaking the law, it doesn't matter. So we really said, okay, let's spend the money on the legal side of things. Let's really make sure front to back that there's something that's that place where coaches can have all the tools that they need, but operate in a way where they're not going to have to worry about crossing into those gray areas. And so that's a big piece of what we've tried to do for coaches, meet them where they are, because some coaches, they've been around labs, they have some experience with them, they're not uncomfortable with it. Some have never seen it. Some don't even know what an EHR platform is. Some have used 6 different ones and have strong feelings about it. Some know a lot about supplements. Some don't know anything about supplements. So I think it's really important to meet people where they are. And if I looked at our platform, can we be something for everyone? We can, but I personally enjoy working with the coaches that are green, the ones that aren't quite sure where to start. If they have they're introspective, they're motivated, they're coachable, but they're willing to do the things they need to do to be successful too.
So this leads us to kind of what you guys do, your platform, your business, and kind of why we asked you to come on here, because I mean, how about it, Aaron? This is what we hear from people too, in terms of the list of things they feel are getting in their way from getting started. And it's a long list. And now the overwhelm sets in. Rather than focusing on one thing at a time, they take a look at everything they need to do and they just sort of freeze up and nothing gets done. And, no mentorship 100%. And that's something that people either can take the bull by the horns, grab each other as a group and mentor each other, but that might feel like the blind leading the blind, right? So typically buying into something that provides that mentorship, and there's no lack of people out there trying to do that. I mean, I get hit up on Instagram all the time for stuff like that, but not knowing how to sell or feeling uncomfortable selling, marketing, that all kind of falls in this same group. And it's because, look, health coaches, give yourself a break. You didn't go into health coaching saying, wow, I can't wait to learn how to sell what I'm doing. You go into health coaching because you want to help people. And then you realize that in order to have your own practice, to be able to do what you want to do, have the autonomy to run it the way you want to run it, you need to have your own business. Just going out to get a job's not going to give you that. So you need to figure out the logistics, and that's where everybody gets stuck. I agree with you. Most health coaches give up way too soon. They get 1 year in, they're in their second year, it's still hard, and then they give up. We keep telling people you got to give it 3 years. I'd love your opinion on that. But now we find ourselves, I think back in the day when I first started, health coaching was basically just about psychology and behavior change. And occasionally we talked about nutrition, or it was fitness, or whatever our little focus was. Now we're in a situation, for good or bad, where it's I think on the margin, mostly good, that the health consumer has access to so much information and so many resources and tools now. There's all sorts of companies coming to market that they're like, wow, this all sounds awesome. But again, the average consumer doesn't really know what to do with it without coaching. So this is where this access to labs is really helpful. And we all know the issues running in line with that. And so I love the fact that you were able to say, okay, I've been in practice for 12 years. This is all the experience I can bring to the table. This is what I'm noticing about these allied professionals that I think really add value to the health consumer. How can I help them be more successful and build a business I love doing at the same time? Because you don't work for free either, and you shouldn't. So tell everyone a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, a little bit about both sides, about the direct-to-consumer side and kind of what you do there and how that back end can help health coaches sort of get started in their own path.
Yeah, so basically, we have our health coaching business accelerator program. It's everything you need from start to finish. So we have partnerships with companies for liability insurance, EHR platforms, straight through everything from blood work through LabCorp, through your specialty testing, genetic, gastrointestinal, heavy metals, food sensitivity, you name it, across the board. There's really not a test we can't run. So we have it set up. So we have our own nutraceutical line, and we also partner with several other the big names in the functional medicine space, like Zymogen and Biotics and Apex and Quicksilver. So we've wanted people ask what is unique about what you do, and we don't have any one thing that makes us unique. What makes us unique is we put about 20 different things together that are all in silos that people have to kind of piecemeal together. We put it all in one place from a convenience standpoint. And then I think it's industry experience as well. So so we have partnerships with lab analytics as well. So when you're sitting down with that consumer, just because you know it doesn't mean you can legally say it. You might say, hey, this person's A1C is 6.6, they're diabetic. Can you tell someone that as a coach? No, you can't. But is it good that you know that? It is. So we've looked at it from the standpoint, and our attorneys kind of wove it together and said, all right, let's just put all the data in front of them. We have an MD that's licensed in all 50 states and consulting physicians that work under her. So when labs would come in, you can have access to labs for any of your clients in any state. And then you are in a spot where the labs come in, our team of providers will analyze those. They'll look at a symptom questionnaire so they can tie that in together. They can look at the person's healthcare goals. So they weave all of that together, and then they build what we call a health improvement plan. That health improvement plan will be high-level dietary recommendations, condition-specific, lab-specific, nutraceutical recommendations, specialty testing recommendations, all put in one place. It's about a 50-page report that they're able to utilize with their client. We do not give anything directly to the client, so we always make sure we put that coach in a position of authority with that client. And they're going to sit down, and it's one of those things when someone says, I don't really understand what C-reactive protein is. So instead of the coach shooting from the hip and explaining it and potentially crossing a legal line they don't know, we have it as part of the report. There's a definition of every single marker. It ties into where their range is from a functional range, from a lab range, like a standard lab range standpoint. And so they can go through and they can speak to this. And this whole report's been signed off on by our MD. So they're literally reading a report that was signed off on by the MD. So it really covers them from that standpoint. We also do weekly accountability meetings with our coaches. We do group trainings. So we've had some really, really cool speakers come in. We've had some small business consultants come in and work with them on a week-to-week basis. We'll go through and do like case prep. So if they have a really unique case where they're just not quite sure, like, how do I take this and how do I explain it to this person where they're not going to basically black out and have no idea what I'm talking about. So we'll sit there and we'll say, hey, here's some clinical pearls. Here's how you kind of tie in what you're seeing on the labs with some of what their personal goals are and some of the symptoms that they are seeing on their intake questionnaire. And really, how do you tie it all together in a way where you can concisely communicate it in a way that is going to be digestible for that end user. And so from there, we have an e-commerce platform. So our coaches are able to go in and put together orders for their clients. They can do direct to consumer shipping. So they can ship it to their clients. If they're in Florida, if they're in Washington, it doesn't really matter. They're able to do that. Any of the specialty testing, the kits can be drop shipped directly to their clients as well. So we really look at it from the standpoint of a convenience factor to really integrate all the systems and processes together.
Holy moly, that's robust. I really like that you shared, the system here, which is a team of consulting physicians is reviewing the symptom self-assessment from the patient and the outcomes of the labs, putting together the report. That's now a resource that a health coach is absolutely within scope to use. And this distinction is really important because when coaches ask, like, can I run labs in my practice? The answer is so, or can I use labs in my practice? The answer is so nuanced. It's not simply a yes or no answer. It's what are you doing with it? How, there's a lot to it. So, I feel as though you have approached this from a legal sort of protective practice point of view. I know you mentioned you have a consulting lawyer on staff, which I think is awesome as well. That's helps to keep everybody safe. But the thing is, like, this report now is a resource that you can walk your client through with everything. And I really am excited personally that you're tying the symptomatology to the lab outcomes. because to your point, the patient client came in with the symptoms. Now we have the data to corroborate it. Let's make sure we keep those two things connected. Your lab value is this, and that's why you're feeling this. And now we're going to do this, and it's going to make you feel better in this way. It just sounds very impactful for everybody, coach and client. I feel it's very empowering to have all this information just collated like this. It's incredible. If there's one thing I've learned in my years as a health professional, it's that changing lives is much easier when you're doing it alongside a team of experts. Physicians, nurse practitioners, and other care providers have learned this too, which is why they're looking for health coaches just like you to join their medical patient care team. Primal Health Coach Institute's Health Coaching in Medical Practices Specialist certification prepares you for that. You'll learn how to work alongside a clinician and advise and motivate patients to change unhealthy lifestyle habits and manage chronic conditions. By the time your studies are complete, you'll be ready to secure a position at a practice that fits best with your coaching style, and you'll have the tools you need to plan programs, accept referrals, and coach patients. If you're a health coach with a passion for helping patients get the life-changing information, encouragement, and accountability they need to make sustainable changes in their health, visit primalhealthcoach.com to learn more about the Health Coaching in Medical Practices Specialist certification.
Thank you. And I think the one thing with labs, and now the laws change all the time. There are about half the states that anybody can order labs in those states. And so you'll have coaches that say, oh, I can get access to labs. I can help my clients order. I can go through this lab company. But the problem is, great, you can get the data, but you can't interpret the data. And so you just it's really like our attorney, she's awesome. And she's one of the most well-respected in the alternative healthcare space. She's gone to trial. She's done these things. So she sees if it can go wrong, she knows what it looks like. And just because it hasn't gone wrong yet doesn't mean that it can't. There are a lot of coaches that are getting into significant hot water for practicing medicine without a license. And it's such an unnecessary thing. It's such a simple workaround, a simple process. But people don't know what they don't know. And coaches at the end of the day don't really know what's out there from an accessibility standpoint.
Yes. I think you need to say that part louder for the people in the back, which is, yes, you can access direct-to-consumer testing. And yes, they can go and get the test done. And I think sometimes coaches think that's protecting them all by itself. Like, oh, the client went and got the test done. I didn't tell them to go get it. I didn't order the labs. It's like, fair enough. But then what are you doing afterwards? Yeah. We have to see this the whole way through, gang. Like, it's really honestly need to protect not yourself as an individual, but the whole entire health coaching industry writ large. It would behoove us all to be more careful.
It builds trust in the industry and a level of respect in the industry too. If we're always shooting from the hip and have that cowgirl mentality, it's not a good look, because you have to understand, what do we look like as an industry to the medical profession? What do we look like to our target consumer? And you don't do anything to help yourself when you're playing in gray areas, when you're building yourself up by putting other industries down. Like, none of that ever has a good look to it. I've always told coaches and providers that lead with that mentality of, oh, you're on a statin. Well, statins are crap. Okay. Do I love statin drugs? I don't. But there's a better way to phrase and speak to things. And that's really, it's how do you frame everything that you're dealing with? And just because you have access to that data, you're in a spot where our attorney said, like, there's a lot of companies out there that you can run the specialty test and there's a doctor on that staff that will help you interpret it. But guess what? They typically you can call a number and they'll talk to you. But guess what? You're translating something that came verbally. It's not signed off on by the provider. They didn't give you recommendations. They educated you. So you're now taking data that you have no proof was never signed off on by a physician. And you are now, guess what you're doing? You're interpreting that lab. You were educated on it, but you were interpreting that lab. And that's what our attorney said. She's like, there's so much gray area. She's like, at the end of the day, she's like, I could go nitpick almost any health coach that runs their own business, and almost all of them are breaking the law. Some of them substantially, some of them a little bit, some of them somewhere in the middle. She's like, but if an attorney wanted to come in and look at the laws that are being broken, it wouldn't be difficult for them. And it's like, from my standpoint, why? It's not necessary. Like, just protect yourself. Don't be in a spot where all of a sudden your profession that you've worked so hard and you're so passionate about can be taken away from you tomorrow. Protect yourself. Like, because if you don't protect yourself, eventually it's going to have that negative impact. And so that's really one of our biggest pieces is protect the coaches and put them in a position where they're able to do what they love, have the tools to do it, but they're also protected.
Yeah. So I just want to kind of put some big parentheses around this. At the end of the day, protecting yourself, protecting your client, and to Erin's point, protecting the industry. We are an unregulated industry, and I don't want to be regulated. I have zero interest in being regulated. This is the problem that dietitians and doctors and anyone that has to seek state licensure falls victim to, which means you're relegated to that one state. If you want to practice outside of another state, you got to go get licensed in that state. And now there are these very strict set of rules that says what you can and can't do. There is no legal scope of practice for health coaching right now. What there are laws that are on the books relative to other professions that create limits for people that are not licensed. That's what Ryan's referring to here, right? That depending on the state you're in, you might be, quote unquote, breaking a law that, again, doesn't really apply to you. It just applies to anybody that's not a doctor, for example, or anybody that's not an RD or what have you. We don't know until we get really comfortable with your state laws and then help you figure out how to navigate for them. And just because something might not be like illegal, like let's say you live in Texas, talk about the wild, wild west and cowboys and cowgirls, right? There was nothing there, and especially around like nutritional advice, right? So from there, I can do whatever I want, I guess. But should you is the question, first of all. And if something goes wrong, this is where those who are calling for health coaching to become regulated now has more ammunition, saying, see, this is what happens when you have all these people that are unregulated out doing things, that somebody gets hurt. And that's what we're trying to avoid. So the answer is only do that which you are well-trained, skilled, and legally allowed to do. Secondly, anything that might be kind of in a gray area, meaning, hey, I know what to do. I'm well educated. I think I can provide value here, but I need some sort of oversight or guardrails around it or mentorship or what have you. So just be really clear. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. And if you just protecting yourself makes a lot of sense, and you can go off and buy one-off solutions to this, you can absolutely do that. Or you can buy into a platform and an organization and a company that's kind of bringing this all together for a pretty reasonable price. But guys, like, we don't want to be regulated. I know for some people thinking, hey, if there's licensure, now I'm going to have more respect. That's come up. Like, I feel like other organizations will respect me more. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I think on the margin, it'll just end up limiting us even more than necessary, right? That things tend to go overboard when that happens. So let's just avoid that. Just because you might legally be allowed to do something doesn't necessarily mean you should. Put yourself through this, like, what could possibly go wrong mindset, and how do you practically protect yourself, your client, and the industry from that, and where can you seek that kind of protection? And this is one way of doing that. So thank you very much, first of all, in sort of thinking through that. But I'd also, you talked about in terms of what else health coaches get stuck with. Here's one of the things Erin and I find is that health coaches find themselves like over certifying themselves, constantly seeking a million different certifications rather than going out. And you did say, and we agree with you, that there's a certain level of knowledge most health coaches should have. Like, you kind of need to understand, at the very least, what does this lab represent? What is it actually measuring, and why is it relevant? Or speaking in terms of, hey, my client has this autoimmune, what is a standard elimination diet? What is a protein? How does it function in the body? Like, it's important that health coaches have a baseline knowledge of how the body actually works. And I know that through the growth of this business, you've interviewed a lot of different health coaches that graduated from a lot of different programs. Are there things that you think, like, when health coaches are trying to decide what they really need to know, are there certain things that you find missing in certain areas? What's the basics? What do health coaches need to have from a knowledge and education perspective?
Depends on a couple of things. Who do you want to work with? What do you want to do? Are you looking at doing general wellness? Do you want to work with I mean, if you're working with people with celiac disease and that's their passion, if you want to do biotoxin mold exposure, which I think can be really overly complicated for coaches, there's no way you can do that without a physician side of things. So it really depends on the complexity of what you want to do. And that's why I said the first thing a coach has to figure out, the first thing any healthcare professional needs to figure out is, what do I want to do? And then you figure out, how do I accomplish that? So I think from the standpoint of foundational education, one thing so I'm familiar with most of the health coaching programs out there. And I think, and I've told you this offline many times, Laura, I think what you guys do is you really prepare coaches for the chronic disease space with that foundational education. I think the board certification, if you're looking for that level of validity and standardization, I think certainly accomplishes that. When you were talking about the coaches that I call it alphabet soup, like I just need to go take this seminar and get this credential and do those things. Think about like any of us professionally. How much of what we do professionally on a day-to-day basis did we learn from reading books or going through courses versus putting your feet to the fire a little bit and you learn from experiences? And so I am one of those jump in, be intelligent, be cautious, but also jump in and experience it. And one of the things, so when coaches have questions, if they're working with a specific case, they can come to one of our providers and ask questions. And if they have a question that's clinical in nature and it needs signed off on, we'll literally put something together. We'll put that through our provider network. We'll sign off on that question. So even when they answer that question from their client or something they weren't clear on, that question is now answered. So everything is just tied in from a legality standpoint. But I circle back to, it's okay to learn on the job a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like realize that you are not in a silo. You can talk with other coaches in the network. Hey, here's what I'm dealing with. Have you ever seen this before? You could talk with the providers. I do training all the time. Just because I enjoy the opportunity to nerd out sometimes and just dig into labs and tie it all together. That's one of my favorite things to do, is the lab analysis piece. So I'll jump in calls. I do calls weekly with all of our coaches. And if you have questions, you're more than welcome to come. It's kind of like office hours. Show up, ask your questions, listen to other coaches ask questions. You'll probably learn stuff from that as well. So I think that part's really important. Is I had a mentor tell me once that if you wait for everything to be perfect to start, you'll never start. And it's true. And we have a coach right now we're working with, and every time she gets ready to go, she's like, I'm going to go do this certification and work on this program. And it's like, what are you going to learn in that you couldn't learn on the fly? And it's like, no one you sit down with is going to expect you to know everything. And so one of the things that I think humility and gets respect from your clients, I would have patients that would ask me questions, and I've been in practice 5, 6, 8 years, worked with thousands of people, and I've coached enough providers. I've probably prepped tens of thousands of cases. There's still things I learned. Guess what? I have no shame in saying, I'm not sure. Let me do a little bit of research and I'll get back to you. Say that to your client. Come to us, ask questions, get answers, and you go back to them. If it's better that than you try to wing it and figure out an answer. And I assure you, no matter how many certifications, no matter how many letters you have after your name, you are going to encounter questions you do not have the answers to. And that's okay. They don't expect us to be machines. We're not AI. We're not Chat GPT. We don't have an answer for every input. And so I think it's have that humility. Just be honest with people. I'm not sure. It's a great question. Let me get an answer for you and I'll let you know.
Yeah. I mean, on one level, it's like you have to respect your cognitive limits. You just can't possibly know and remember everything. So you're going to be in a paradigm where you have to, tell your client, I'm going to look into that for you. Give me a couple of days. I'll get back to you. I also, whenever I say that to a client, I feel like I'm reaffirming that I'm the expert in this. And you just asked me something over here that I'm not an expert in. It actually helps to reaffirm, this is what I can answer for you. But since you've asked something outside of that scope, I'm going to go track that down for you and be right back. And there's something really powerful about feeling like you do have an expertise. I mean, we go back to confidence and clarity. If you're trying to learn everything, you're not going to know enough of anything. And that's just going to perpetuate your feeling of lack of confidence, which I think then you're going to go chase another cert. And this is a infinite loop that gets you nowhere. So it sounds to me like, start with, what do I want to do? And from this perspective, it's like, what, who do I want to help, or what conditions and things? Is that kind of like zero in on maybe some kind of a pathology of some sort? and learn all about that.
Yeah, it's finding your niche. And I always tell people, don't overthink it. It's not like you can't change. I mean, I spent my first 6 years, and 95% of the people I worked with had foundational blood sugar issues. Now, I always joked and said, listen, find me a diabetic that only has diabetes, and you've won the lottery, because you found a unicorn. There's always other things going on. And guess what? You run into that diabetic that has cholesterol issues and hypertension and other autoimmune diseases and hypothyroidism and gastrointestinal issues. And you start learning those things. 95 people are like, how do you know so much about labs? Like, if I didn't know much about labs at this point, we should be concerned, because I've looked at tens of thousands of them. This is what I've done for a long time. And 95% of what I know about labs, I learn by researching myself, looking at the data, having good mentors, asking. I have no shame in asking questions. I'm a question asker. I was raised by an engineer, and so engineers by training ask a lot of questions. I have a business partner that our COO is an engineer by trade. So I always have to be ready to answer questions. So don't be afraid to research things and learn on the fly. For me personally, I know everyone learns differently, but things stick. When I see that patient that had X condition, and I read about this, and I understand how this supplement ties into it, I understand why this type of diet works well, and I've read this book, and you start having the ability where you start connecting the dots in your head, and all of a sudden something that seemed overwhelming, all of a sudden it comes second nature to you, and you can just see yourself through the process. Because I've told coaches, when you start and you get the health improvement plan from the provider, you're going to be like, holy cow, this is a lot. It can be overwhelming sometimes. And then I'm like, give it 6 months, give it a year. And all of a sudden you could put probably 90% of the health improvement plan together yourself, because you've learned so much through the process of working with clients, that you get it. You've seen it before. And I always say, don't ever say you've seen everything, because that's when you get that thing out of left field. I'm yet to see everything. I've seen a lot, and it allows you to navigate your way through and have a pretty good understanding of, like, hey, when I communicate this way to a person with this condition, when they seem to understand it, and I get these questions, and here's how I answer them. So you learn you don't learn how to do anything by reading a book. You learn how to do things. That's foundation, but you learn how to actually do by doing it, learning about what works, what doesn't work, and getting feedback. And so our coaches that do the best are the ones that ask a lot of questions. They get involved, they sit in, they've been around a lot of case review, they ask a lot of questions. The old adage, there's no such thing as a dumb question, it's true. I mean, we've all been at that starting spot. And if you shame someone for asking a starter type question, quite frankly, you're not the kind of person I want to work around anyways. To me, you ask that question, guess what? Other people have the same question. People learn from it. You can come back to it. So I think that piece is really important. Be collaborative in nature, be curious, and be humble enough to ask for help when you need it.
The stuff that sticks is the information or the education that you earned that was applied immediately or sort of right away, or was part of a contextual experience. It sticks with you better than when you've read it in a book. I mean, there's reasons why whether it's doctors or nurses or dietitians, I don't know about chiropractors, but even the NBHWC, they want you to have some sort of hands-on sort of learning before you go and take your boards, for example, or you take the test for your license. Like, doctors have to go through residency, dietitians have to go through a 1-year internship, the National Board for Health and Wellness Coaching, you have to have coached 50 times before you even take their test, because that's how you actually learn and internally absorb what you actually learned in real time. So are there some things you should learn baseline so that you have some working knowledge to get started? Absolutely. At the Primal Health Coach Institute, we're one of the few schools that actually thinks health coaches should have some basic biological knowledge, some biochemical knowledge, basic understanding of physiology and genetics, so that you can sort of understand how things are working and make a connection to what your clients are talking about. However, there's always opportunities to go deeper, and you will learn to go deeper while you're sitting with clients and you realize what you don't know. I mean, we talk a lot about, we have on this podcast, these stages of learning. You've got this unconscious incompetence. You have no idea. It's not even hitting your radar. Many new coaches coming they're in this very conscious incompetent stage. Like, I know exactly what I don't know. So I'm going to go learn that. I feel like I need to learn that to even start. Then you get into this, and this is where many people have a hard time starting or they're insecure, this conscious competent stage. I have learned enough to know that I can help others. So this is where you need to just get going. You just need to get going so that you're like, okay, now I know this is what I need to know because I'm focusing on this area. I'm going to go learn it rather than just collecting all the things. And then eventually you get into this sort of conscious, unconscious competence in certain areas, like you around labs, for example. But, I've been coaching for 10 years. There's still stuff I learn. I know doctors that have been in practice for decades that are still learning something new. Just because you're unconsciously competent in your area of expertise doesn't mean you can't learn, but you learn when it comes up and when it's going. And all this is completely normal. And I love that what you've built was this community where people can be in those various stages of their practice and feel safe and have like colleagues and mentors that they can ask these questions of. I mean, do you find when coaches are working within your group and they're bringing clients in, they've got a handful of clients on there, how are they using, is this during office hours? Is there some sort of community where they're sharing like in real-time chat? Like how do people access the ability to kind of borrow your expertise basically?
Yeah, a few different ways. So we have multiple pre-scheduled office hours, whether it's myself, other providers in our network, our director of health coaching. Like I said, we'll bring in guest speakers for different things on those. So several hours a week. We have a private Facebook group. We have a private WhatsApp group. So it's, you have a question, throw it out there. It's really, I always think it's fun when I'll see a question come in and I'm going to answer it and someone else jumps in and they answer it. And I'm like, it's like proud parent moment. It takes a village. It's great having that community. We've seen a lot of really selfless acts from the coaches that came in during our beta starting in April, where they'll jump in and they'll grab 2 or 3 coaches and say, hey, you need some support on social media. Here's some of the stuff that's worked for me from a marketing standpoint. Hey, you're uncomfortable with your pricing structure. Let me talk through some of the things that help me get over that lack of confidence and how to speak to that. Hey, you're not quite sure, you're really confident on the blood work piece, but you kind of get overwhelmed when the provider recommends a Dutch test and you're not sure how to speak to that. Like this is what helped me, or hey, I saw this marker. What are your thoughts on this? Or I have this specific case. So those are really the ways we do it. And I mean, we're at a spot right now where it's pretty open. If you need help, you're going to get help. You can jump in through the EHR platform and you can chat with the providers. Hey, I have this specific question. So we keep everything HIPAA compliant and it's in a protected space. If there's a question that needs a true clinical response, that consulting physician will put that response together, go through our MD and get that signed off and get that uploaded back into the EHR. So you are able to answer that question. And we always try to, I've kind of trained everybody, when you give an answer, give a resource with that answer, because there may be something that's not great for a coach to speak to, but there's never a situation where you can't give someone medical literature. Go give them that Harvard study, go give them that PubMed research paper on this, because then it's not your opinion. It's like, here's what the data shows. And that client probably can't read or understand medical literature, but typically I always tell the coaches, read the abstract, read the conclusion. It gives you a pretty good, that's usually the most digestible part of it anyways. And it's where the most important piece of it is. Give that data, because guess what? If they go to their MD and their MD is like, oh, you're going with a health coach and they're quote treating your autoimmune disease, and you show up, they're like, well, they gave me this resource, and they're like, oh, it's from PubMed. That's maybe I was wrong. Oh, it's from the NIH. Oh, this is good research. This is good data. And I've seen quickly that skepticism that can exist between the different spectrums of healthcare becomes respect. I'll give a quick story. When I was early in practice, I always joked a month didn't go by that I wasn't called a quack. I was the chiropractor working with diabetics, and now all of a sudden doing the exact same things. I'm an industry leader, so it's amazing what changes in 12 years. But I had an endocrinologist that told a patient that we were working with, between both of us, said, if you want to die, go to your chiropractor for your diabetes. That was a direct quote. So I said nothing. I got sent a nasty email saying that I was a quack, and I was like, all right, it is what it is. So this person had been working with this endocrinologist for 10 years, out of control, 10 plus A1C, probably 15 pharmaceuticals, sick as can be. 3 months in, we reran lab work. A1C went from like, I don't know, 11 or 12 down to 6.1 as a type 1 diabetic, which is, some people don't know data. That's fantastic. Went back to the endocrinologist. I got a certified letter from the endocrinologist. I'm like, oh gosh, what is this? It was an apology letter, handwritten apology letter from the endocrinologist. Asked if he could go to lunch with me, and started referring me his most difficult cases that he felt like he was stuck with. And so just because most people, if they were judged by someone like that, would kind of shut down in the situation, it impacts your confidence. I looked at it as an opportunity to bridge a gap and educate someone on what we do in the health coaching space and the functional medicine space. And to me, there's room for everyone there. We definitely need really good endocrinologists. There are times that it's way outside of my scope. There are times where people with hypothyroidism absolutely need thyroid hormone replacement, whether it's Synthroid or a levothyroxine, or they want to go like a Nature Thyroid or an Armor. That there's a time and a place. And so building your network, building those relationships, I always encourage the coaches to get to know the endocrinologists that they can really collaborate with, and the MDs and the chiropractors and the nutritionists and dietitians. Don't look at everybody as competition. Look at the opportunity to create synergies where kind of the rising tide lifts all ships.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it's an amazing story. I mean, we just put our heads down and help our clients get results. The healthcare industry is gonna perk up and notice. Okay, so I mean, this, like, just the sheer amount of resources you offer for coaches is baffling. It is everything by the sounds of it. You've got access to tools, technology. There's community. There's legal support. So what do people need? What do coaches need to get started? Do they have to be certified? Do they have to have a specialty? Do they have to have anything? Do they have to have anything at all? How do they get started? Or when's a good time? You mentioned at the very beginning of the conversation that your happy place is working with the super green coaches, brand new to the industry. So who and how do they get involved with this?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of different ways. So we have a platform. We do a licensing agreement where coaches get access to everything. Their EHR, I mean, literally outside of what we provide, but the only thing that they would have to pay for is their liability insurance, their business insurance, and that's about it. So we have a partnership with Better, so they get their Better platform access, the enterprise levels. They have all the tools that come with that, the provider programs, everything's covered. Their e-commerce store gets built out so they can order specialty testing products and things like that. All of the office hours and coaching. So we do a $399 a month. We don't do long-term commitments. So if you opt out with a 30-day notice, and if it's not something that's valuable to you, that's fine. The other piece, so you asked about the education, board eligible. We don't require board certification. We require board eligibility. So they need to have taken one of the health coaching certifications that would allow them to sit for boards. We are going to make it required that within 12 months, they do have board certification. So we'll allow them to work with us for 12 months. So that boards are offered twice a year. So they have the opportunity 2 times to take the boards. Or we have an internship program. So we'll tell people, like, come in, it's $99 a month if you're not sure, or if you're still halfway through your program, you're not sure what you're going to do, you want to have some exposure. We're not going to set your EHR platform up. You're not going to have the ability to order labs and do things like that. Now, if you want to run them on yourself, or like a significant other, a family member, things like that, we can set that up through one of the other coaches or our providers. But it gives you the ability to jump in, meet the group, sit in on the office hours, get exposure to all those things. It's kind of it's an opportunity to learn and see if is it right for me? Am I equipped for this? Is this what I want to do from a business standpoint, from a professional standpoint? We don't let people sit in on the internship program forever. So we do cap that at 6 months. But what we're offering for anyone that comes through the Primal Institute is we've created a code where it's Primal Radio. They'll receive $100 off for their first 4 months. And like we said, there's no long-term commitment. We want coaches to work with us because they see value, they enjoy the community, they're benefiting from it, and they're able to help more people.
I love it. Yeah. So it sounds to me like for coaches that are either nearing the end of their certification or have finished but are really struggling with putting all the pieces together. When you really break down all the incremental costs for the little things that you have to pay for, like your practice management platform. I heard you say Practice Better. There's a bunch of them out there, but this will include that membership. Or, a scheduling app or whatever, all these things that you pay these monthly fees for. I would venture to say when you end up adding all that up, you're probably close to $399, even if you're at half that. Having the mentorship and the business growth and the oversight and all that other stuff has got to be equally valuable enough to kind of warrant that other half. So, I mean, look, we hear it all the time. I'm stuck because, and all of the things that come out are all things that you guys are addressing, which we love. And I asked you to come on here because we are, you and I have spoken offline about a lot of things about kind of how you could help our specific students and graduates, but Health Coach Radio is about all of health coaching. And I just really felt like getting your message and what you're doing out there to the health coaching community is really valuable. And we respect you and your organization enough that you're helping us with some projects. So stay tuned on that. But I love the internship idea for an additional $99 a month to be a fly on the wall and learn. And so I think that's fantastic. And thanks for the sort of code here too for people that are listening. So people that want to kind of know more, where do they go? How do they reach out to you? Where do they go to kind of learn more on the interwebs somewhere?
Yep, they can go to our website. It's www.eupure.com. So it's EUPURE.com. Gives them the ability to register for either the full program or the internship, or they're more than welcome to set up if they have questions, curiosity. We have a video on our website that kind of talks through the platform, and I'm a visual learner, so I do well with crayons, colored pencils, and visuals. So it's a visual experience to go through that, or they're more than welcome to set up a discovery call with our director of health coaching, Brennan Edwards. It's really one of those where we're happy to answer questions. We want to make sure it's right for people. It's why we have the internship program. It's also why we don't do long-term commitments. We want people to have the experience. And if it's right for them, awesome. We'd love to help people. And if it's not, that's okay too.
Wow. Amazing. Just really, really incredible. You've compiled everything a coach could need to get started. To Laura's point, the breadth of technology and tools that one might need to employ is overwhelming, and those integrations are hard. I find those hard, but you've got it all ready to go. I feel like it's a pretty no-brainer. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate you building it.
No, absolutely. No, it's been a journey over the last 2 years. We're just excited to everything went well with our initial group starting in April, and so we're excited to bring this next group on over the next month or two and just have more impact. I mean, I think it adds more validity, protects more coaches, and I think it makes the journey in the business a lot more enjoyable to operate.
Very
Love
cool.
it. Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan.
Thank you guys for having me, and I look forward to collaborating on some projects with you here soon.
This podcast was brought to you by Primal Health Coach Institute. To learn more about how to become a successful health coach, get in touch with us by visiting primalhealthcoach.com/call. Or if you're already a successful health coach, practitioner, influencer, or thought leader with a thriving business and an interesting story, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us at hello@primalhealthcoach.com and let us know why we need to interview you for Health Coach Radio. Thanks for listening.